Alright, so hello and welcome to a Broken Arrow. We're going to go over deck arsenal, or technically battle groups, but the only battle groups or to choose from in the beta are basically two. And for the Americans, it's the United States Marine Corps and the Armored Brigade. Now, the beta closes on the 16th, so if this helps you before then, well, congratulations. It helped. Alright, so let's get to it. Reconnaissance. Alright. Let's go over some of the choices that you have here. We're going to go over the Cav Scouts first. Cav Scouts are very good. And the reason they're very good at the kind of reconnaissance role, they have decent optics, not as good as scout snipers, but is about as good as force recon, which makes them actually decent recon units. Their real strength, though, is their javelin, because this thing kills pretty much everything. You have a few of these javelins ready. These can fire out and actually go through tank smoke because they are fire and forget missiles, and they will hit the tank. I've seen it plenty of times. It is a very good weapon. However, the squads are very small with the only 3 missiles on their javelin, so they need to be constantly resupplied if you actually want to use them like that. For actual reconnaissance units, they're very expensive and very small. I would use something else for reconnaissance, but if you want some more firepower in your forward deployed units, Cav Scouts are very good at that. Now, some of the vehicles that you can take them in is the new AMPV, which is basically just a Bradley chassis. And you can up armor this thing all the way to a Bushmaster with a javelin, which is not a bad idea on a combat vehicle. Now, for your reconnaissance tab, it's maybe not the best idea because you are going to be burning a whole bunch of points, a horrific amount of points to do that. And you can even upgrade the base armor to have some reactive ability, but depending on how much you're going to be in combat with this vehicle depends if you're going to upkit it or not. One of the advantages of upkitting this is it gets smoke. Besides that, it gets a bit more armor on its front for kinetic rounds and a lot of heat resistance. Now, this 400mm heat, usually heat warheads can penetrate up to 1,000 meters, but we're playing in a game sense, so this is somewhat decent. I won't say it's amazing for the amount of points you're paying per vehicle, but that's up to you. Next, you have the M1113. This is basically just a support vehicle. I don't up armor this thing. If you're getting them in the M113, then, well, it's going to do its job at getting them there. Now, the other 2 vehicles that you can get are technically reconnaissance vehicles. So you're getting a Cav Scout that's a recon, and then you're getting a vehicle that is a recon that has around the same optics. Now, you can actually get a better sensor package on the M4A3 CAV, the Cavalry Fighting Vehicle. But that is going to be up to you. I probably wouldn't take them on the M2A2 because, well, it just has worse optics, in all honesty, but it is cheaper, and especially if you don't want to upgrade, it could be a good option for you. Otherwise, the M3A4 CFV, Cavalry Fighting Vehicle, you can up armor the absolute shit out of this thing. However, let me give you a fair warning here, that if you do that, you're expecting this vehicle to fight. It's a reconnaissance vehicle. If this thing actually meets a tank, it's probably going to die. Unless it can fire its tow, and before the enemy can see it and shoot back. One of the upgrades that you probably should look at is an Iron Fist active protection system, because this will actually protect you twice against technically kinetic rounds, but mostly missiles and heat warheads, which are very good. That gives you 2 chances to keep the vehicle alive. You can upgrade the engine to get actually really, really, really good mobility, which is what I did here. Now, some other things that you can look at is bringing Cav Scouts on foot. So let's get this out of the way first. You can bring infantry on foot at no additional cost. So what does that mean? Let me break it down this way. If you come from Wargaming or Warno, usually you have to bring infantry in on a transport, because they're only limited to that transport. That is not how this works in Broken Arrow. In Broken Arrow, any one of these vehicles that you bring in, including from other tabs, even helicopters, so for example, these mechanized infantry that have this Bradley, okay, that Bradley can be used to bring in Cav Scouts. And anything you buy in this tab can be used to bring in other units, so infantry units, as long as the vehicle can actually physically seat a squad. They can be brought in from any vehicle. So any vehicles that you add here that can actually carry troops can carry any type of troop from the reconnaissance or infantry tab, which is very, very, very nice. This is the reason that most of my guys are dismounted, my Force Comm and my Scout Snipers, because I drop them off in a C-130, because they can be carried there. That's just something to keep in mind. Next is Force Comm. Now, they have two different loadouts. Going over the loadouts, you have Black Ops and you have Green Ops. I would choose Green Ops pretty much all the time for reconnaissance, because again, they're going to be in the forest engaging enemy troops at decently long range, which means they get 4 marksman rifles and 2 27 IARs, okay, which are the same rifle, but we're getting ahead of ourselves, and they get 4 AT4s. If you go for Black Ops, they are cheaper, they are better at close quarters combat, but they have a worse AT, and if you're using a reconnaissance to clear buildings, that's probably not the best use of them. They do come in a variety of vehicles that you can get for other infantry. You can get them in Humvees, they carry up 6. You can get them in basically any configuration you want here, but it's a Humvee. If it gets seen, it's probably going to die. You can also get them in the LAV. If you get the LAV, you get the A2 because it gets optics kit, it gets smoke, and it gets its armor. The armor is not going to stop anything, but the smoke will give it more survivability if you can pop it in time, if you are being engaged by something. The armor is kind of a, wow, geez, it's so much better. So much better, like 30mm better, which is not going to stop anything and prevent you from dying. Now, on foot, that's why I take them on foot. I drop them out of a C-130 in the beginning of the game, and then if I ever need to call them in again, I can technically bring them in a vehicle because they are a squad size of 6, or I can just airdrop them behind the lines, but they're going to have to move up. Or I can call them in on a big helicopter, which is what I also do. Next, Scout Snipers. Scout Snipers are your best reconnaissance unit, and they can also laser designate. Laser designation in this game is very useful if you're trying to call in precise weapons. So, for example, your paladins can fire laser-guided munitions, and you can also drop laser-guided bombs, and they will hit the target. However, in my opinion, they are very hard to use for infantry right now, because an infantry unit can actually see and shoot an APC, but its laser designator is at its feet, so it won't laser designate it. It will say it is impossible, or just will refuse to do it. Even though they can see the vehicle and they can shoot at the vehicle, they can't laser designate it. There is one exception to this. If you can get them into a basically a massive apartment block, if you can get them up there in a high building, they can laser designate pretty much anything that's on the map, or they can see. So that is the one use for these Scout Snipers. They're also your best reconnaissance unit, which is why I bring them. They have 2 different loadouts. You can give them the M40, or you can give them the anti-material rifle. In all honesty, it's up to you. If you feel like your Scout Snipers are going to be running into enemy vehicles, which they might, and you want to snipe, I don't know, a truck or something in the back line for their resupply, or even snipe a resupply, anti-material rifle. If you want them to be the cheapest they can possibly be, while also technically being a sniper, take the M40, alright? I bring them on foot, because they're a 2-man squad. You can throw them out of the back of a plane, you can put them in a Humvee vehicle, you can bring them with the infantry, you can put them in a helicopter, do whatever. And it saves you points on the recon tab that you're going to need for other vehicles. Okay, next is this IFAV M2. Why do you bring this at the lowest point value possible? Very simple. This gives you reconnaissance. It is very fast to call in. You can call it into multiple places because you're going to have a lot of them. And they provide you reconnaissance. They are not very stealthy. They will die as soon as anything gets close to them, but they will give you a heads up that that thing is coming. That is why they're useful. Please run them if you are going to be playing. You will see what I mean as soon as you use them. You'll be like, I need reconnaissance here. Throws one of these in there. Great. Now my Scout Snipers can move in closer, or my infantry guys can move in closer for reconnaissance up close. Well, these guys kind of sit in the midline in the back, or you're on your flanks. Next, M2A2 SEP V2 TUA, basically a reconnaissance tank. If you have played Warno, if you have played Red Dragon, if you have played any of those games, you will know that tank reconnaissance is powerful. In this game, tank reconnaissance is powerful. You put one of these with a tank push, you can see what is shooting at you. I don't need to tell you that that is very good. It's also very hard to kill, but it is very horrifically expensive. So you get what you pay for here. I've seen people rush with like 15 Abrams and have one of these reconnaissance tanks, and they will just kill every single reconnaissance unit. They will kill every single anti-tank unit, because tanks right now are very powerful, more powerful than infantry. If you want a tank push, well, go right ahead. It actually works. If you want to take the safer, quote-unquote, cheaper option, you can get this M7A2 B Fist, basically a fister, so artillery. You can bring as much up armor as you want. I wouldn't up armor it. It doesn't have an APS. APS is very good here. You have smoke anyway in your base armor package. You can get the Iron Fist, so it kind of was wrong there. But get that if you're going to bring it in. You can get the unit variant. You get the A3, and then you can get the A4. These have really good reconnaissance optics, especially on the A3 and A4. If you want to bring them in instead of the tank. Or if you want a tank, you bring the tank. These are kind of your options for gathering intelligence while fighting the enemy, which is an actual thing. I just didn't get the term correct. Fighting for intelligence, let's put it that way. So you can bring them in if you want instead of the tank. That's what I would say that you should do. Next is your M981 Fist Vist, which is basically a fucking 113 that can be up armored to die with a smoke round. Don't bring this because it's bad. Just bring a Bradley. Just bring a Bradley. Literally just bring a Bradley if you want to do reconnaissance like this. The only saving grace of this vehicle is that it has excellent reconnaissance and a laser detonator. But it cannot defend itself. It can't even pop smoke. I think if you get the stupid smoke package, you're costing 80. Please get a Bradley at this point. You can actually get a Bradley for 105 if you want to get a slow Bradley with not as good optics. But at least the ability to fucking shoot back, which is what I would do. But you do you, okay? So that should be your reconnaissance tab done. I think I dropped a Bradley or something here, or I dropped a Cav Scout. All right, infantry. This is where everything gets exciting. Okay, the first thing you're going to do if you're playing a US deck in the beta is you get Marine Raiders. You then get Marine Raiders as standoff, and you get 4 of them. Why? Because they are the best infantry unit in the game right now. Hands down. These guys can even technically fight 2 Marine squads by themselves if you're fighting US players. If you're fighting anything Russian, they will kill everything in front of them. Because they have 10 assault rifles, 1 Maz, 2 designated marksman rifles that have the engagement range out to 600 meters. You then have 2 automatic, 2 machine guns for your Mark 48s. They get you out to a range of 450. And then you have your assault rifles at 400. And they're suppressed. Which means that their stealth value is very good. About as good as a fucking, as a reconnaissance team. I say that as like, not as good, but you get the picture. Marine Raiders fucking kill everything. You can technically take them as a door kicker because they do get 2 MGLs. That is an option if you want to play them at close quarters. I personally wouldn't because the standoff gives them so much more fucking firepower when you need to clear out everything else that's not in a building. And they can do it very well. Now, take 4 of them. That's 400 points of your infantry gone. Next, you're going to take your Marines. Now, the Marines are good because they're a very big squad. Again, you need to think of this like kind of like a Warno if anyone's played that recently. When the Soviets first came out, or sorry, I think it was the Americans. When the Americans first came out, they didn't have anybody bigger than a fucking fire team, a 4-man infantry team. And the Soviets had a 6 to 8 man in their Motostrelsky. Every single fucking time, this is, again, in the very early beta, that a Soviet Union infantry squad ran into an American fire team. The fire team would die because there was not enough members to actually fight effectively, unless they had their vehicle next to them. That's the same case here. It's just that it's reversed. The U.S. has bigger squads than the Russians right now. So that means they're going to win in any engagement that they fight in a forest. This is why you take Marines. However, the Marines have some problems, because they are technically not in their configuration that they should be. This configuration, where there is 13 men in the squad, means that they are losing their assistant squad leader and that they are losing their systems operator. So this technically should be a 15-man Marine squad instead of a 13-man. But we're just going to get rid of those 2 for now. You have a squad leader, okay? And then you have 4 fire teams. That should be 13 men, right? Each fire team is 4 people. There should be 3 machine gun variants of the IAR And then there should be, just like there is on the reconnaissance side for Force Recon, there should be 3 M38 DMRs assigned to the squad. If we're going by the modern quote-unquote future standard, because they actually have the optics that they should for the modern slash future versions of the Marines, they need to have the 3 DMRs, and they need to have the 3 machine gun variants of the IAR. And also, they need their 3 SMAWs. They're not SMAWs. 3 Carl Gustav, which are called MAWs. But Carl Gustavs, you need 3 of them. Those are technically held in the squad locker room along with the M27s, but they should probably have them. Because right now, one of the problems with the Marines is, yes, they all have an M27 IAR, but they're only 400 meters effective range. In real life, the reason it's kind of like set up like this, again, they have machine gun variants and DMR variants in real life too, but is because they can technically pass ammo to each other and throw fucking magazines, and everyone in the squad uses the same goddamn gun, and everyone knows how to operate it, and everyone knows how to and can give ammo to everyone else in their magazines. Now, IAR machine gun variants have bigger magazines and a heavier barrel to sustain rate of fire. DMRs have the same-ish thing with a better optic for, again, shooting further. They don't have this in this game. Kind of does need to be fixed before they get around to it. However, they did get the 3 M320s right. Because, again, each squad has 3 of these, 3 DMRs, 3 machine guns, 3 Carl Gustavs, supposedly. Alright? Again, Marines are very good. Now, you can bring them in the AAPV. Whether you bring them in this thing or it doesn't really fucking matter. Being honest about this thing is gonna die. If it gets hit, it's gonna die. Even the EAAA kit, which was basically used when we fucking first invaded Iraq, it's a fucking amphibious vehicle and it's being pushed into a support role. It is not good as a fire support vehicle because it can die from pretty much fucking anything. But having said that, it does have a Mark 19 AGL for 55 points and a Browning. If you want this vehicle to be fucking thrown away, supporting your infantry push, it can do so very effectively. Just know that you're throwing 55 points away because this thing fucking, as soon as it hits contact, is dead. The next thing you could take them in is this MTVR. Unarmored and in a flatbed configuration because it can fit 16 people, which is your Marine Raiders and your squad, and this Marine squad. This is not a bad option, I will tell you why. Because, and I have yet to reconfigure my quote-unquote infantry deck, but bring a few of these. There's a reason for the madness. If for some reason you can't either airlift, so throw the Marine Raiders out of a cargo plane, or you can't helicopter them in, and you need them in for not a horrific amount of points, bring them in the MTVR. You can bring Marines in the MTVR for the same reason. If they can't helicopter them in, or you can't get them in C-130s, get them in the vehicle. If for any other reason that you need to bring in multiple support teams, so SMAWs, mechanized rifle, AA, and then tow teams, you can put basically I think all of these guys in the same vehicle. That's 10 slots. Yeah, 14. You can put one of every single support unit in one vehicle and bring them to the front, and then you can sell this unit as soon as it gets there. That is another key feature, which probably should have told you guys earlier. But you can sell all these vehicles. You get the point value back, but they take longer to come back. We'll talk about that in the air tab. So, bring a few of them in the MTVRs. That's what I will say there. Or bring something in a fucking MTVR. You can bring a small unit in an MTVR. It does not matter. Just for ease of use, I would put them in the Marines, but you can put them in any fucking configuration you want. Just as long as you have the vehicle, you can bring other units in them, okay? I would, in this case, probably drop a small team and then a mech rifle to make the point value fit, or even a tow team, but I digress. Okay, what else? This C-Stat Dragon. Okay, now, this is technically a fire support team that is not terrible. I will just say that the Dragon, the M47 Dragon, has been out of fucking service for a very long time for a lot of reasons for the US. Now, the Brownings are good for a support weapon if you want to set them up, and the Dragons can at least kill vehicles. Okay, probably not a fucking tank. Technically, theoretically, if they did hit the tank and didn't have heat protection of 750 millimeters, it could technically kill it. Most of them do. Most of them have smoke. Most of them have APS. And you only get 6 shots. It's not a bad team, is what I will say. It's like a combined tow team with a few extra with the 50 cals. So good. And yes, the Marines are technically using the correct rifle. Some people have said that they're not. They are. The M16A4 is to be used by all support line infantry. Technically everything in support, just not the mainline infantry. So Marines, in this case, get all the good shit. Support personnel get the M16A4s. Supposedly by the doctrine that we're going by in quote-unquote 2020 all the way to 2030. Supposedly, okay? They come in the MTVR, AP7, bring them on foot, or bring them in the MTVR and then drop them from the Marines. You can do what you want there. Mechanized infantry. They are wearing the wrong fucking uniform in a configuration of heavy IO-TV, I believe. Yeah, I think this is the IO fucking TV, which we stopped using, but again, I'm digressing here. They are good at their job, which is fucking bunker busting and clearing out fucking structures because they can fire as 84mm heat, or high explosive, which will fucking shred infantry. And they have the shotguns for close quarters work. So, they're not terrible at their specific job. Don't bring them in the M013, it's a waste of fucking points. If you want to bring them in something for cheap that you want to get some fire support out of, you can bring them in the AMPV, you can give them the Javelin, all the way to the Bushmaster and the Armored Kit. You can also bring them in a Bradley, okay? Now, they just have the Blam tow, which can also technically target vehicles, but there's 75mm heat penetration, which means that these are basically exclusively used for infantry. They also can get the M2A3 Bradley ESV. Same thing. Again, the tow doesn't change, so basically bunker busting, which is clearing out infantry. And then you can upgrade the shit out of this. If you want to do it and get the Iron Fist Protection Kit, leave it at that. Or you can upgrade the engine, or you can do whatever the fuck you want there. Just remember that, again, it's a Bradley. It's not meant to fucking take 100 hits before it goes down. And it doesn't have a tow. Alright, you're a mechanized rifleman. Here is the problem with the mechanized rifleman. It's the same fucking problem they had in Warno. They can't stand up to Marines, and they can't stand up to Marine Raiders. And most of the people that you're playing against are being playing the US. If you're fighting Russians, they have a better time because the Russian squads are so small, but they're still not very good because of their squad size. Okay, there is only 6 of them. And that means they're gonna fucking die. They're also wearing, again, the wrong armor, at least this time. They're wearing the wrong armor configuration because we've gone to a new vest, and nobody wears the fucking shitty goddamn arm protectors, if they have any sense. Because fuck, that has too much weight. The one good thing about the mechanized infantry is you can bring them in different types of Bradleys. However, what I will tell you is this. If you're going to want to bring in mechanized infantry, you should bring in AA, and you should bring them in their MMG configuration. Now, because the riflemen AA get the fucking Stinger, which you're going to need. I take them on foot. And then you can get the mechanized rifleman MMGs, which have the medium machine guns, which have the M240s. They do lose any and all ability to kill a fucking vehicle with an AT4. However, they are better at actually fighting infantry. And if you bring them in a Bradley, well, the Bradley can fucking take on any tanks or whatever they're going to be fighting, okay? And these guys, mechanized riflemen, can support a Marine push because, again, they're not very good pushers because these guns cannot be fired from the move. At least from what I have seen, the machine guns cannot be fired on the move. The rifles can, but the machine guns can't. If you want to support a Marine push, you know, M27 IRs, they're going to do the work, and then these guys can support by fire on their position with the Bradley. Now we go on to the straw and or small. Now, technically, the small team is what the Marines have, quote-unquote, right now. What they really should be having is Carl Gustav's. The straw was a development in the early, I think, 2000s up to 2010 that kind of went nowhere. Yes, the US does have a few of these in inventory, but they're not used. So these Marines should either have a small, or they should have the upgrade to have a Carl Gustav. In the game, the reason you take the small is you have 12 rounds of 200mm penetration, which means you kill every vehicle that's not heavily armored. Unfortunately, a lot of the Russian shit is heavily armored, which means you're going to need to take the straw MPV. This is a top attack munition with 80mm of kinetic penetration, which means it'll basically go through fucking everything and kill it. Okay, that is the good about it. However, it only has 4 missiles. So you can pick your poison here for your very close killing of vehicles. You can bring them in whatever configuration you want. If you want to kill vehicles from a standoff distance and you are comfortable fighting in a forest, then you should bring Marines with a tow team. You can bring them in the anti-tank, or you can bring them in the top attack. Top attack, they have better ability to kill vehicles. If you bring them in the tow 2 variant, they have the ability to be cheap. Technically go through most tanks that are not the fucking T-14 or a massively up-armored T-90. And I think a massively up-armored Abrams. But if you get the top attack, that's what you should get, is technically the top attack here if you really want to use them. I was just kind of testing them out to see what the fuck they do. Which makes them a saber team instead of a tow team. But that's up to you there, okay? Just overall, remember to get your Marine Raiders, remember to get your fucking Marines, and bring some MTVRs so you can actually bring in fucking people. If you want to bring in a Bradley or an AMPV, you go ahead and put them in any of the squads that you want. I'm running these current squads. You can go from there. Next is your vehicle tab. Okay, now let's get the shit vehicles out of the way first. The M60A E1. This is not the M60A3, which was the last variant we used. This is an even older air variant. This is a fucking early 70s variant of the M60. About the only good fucking thing it has going for it is its active smoke, and it's ridiculously cheap for a tank. However, if this thing meets fucking anything that is not itself, it will die. And let me tell you, the Russians' bare minimum tank is better than this fucking thing. The other bare minimum tank here, which is the M1A1HC, will fucking destroy this thing. Choose your poison. You want to bring it? Bring it. You don't want to bring it? I don't fucking blame you. Now, don't bring it. Don't bring the fucking box with the goddamn top attack missile. Or tow, technically. It doesn't even have top attack. If you want to bring a tow missile, get the fucking AT-LAV. Get the fucking modernized version of the missile, so it has top attack. That's what I will say about this. If this thing gets fucking seen, it will die. As soon as this thing fires its missile, it will probably be spotted, and as soon as it's spotted, the fucking tank is gonna pop smoke, or it's gonna fucking shoot you and you will die. Those are your 2 options with something like this. Your mileage may vary. You can take the smoke option if you want. That's up to you. Okay, now, which tanks should you actually take? We're going to start at the bottom and say that you probably should not fucking take the M1A1 FEP. Why? It's very expensive for what it does. Just a base configuration of this fucking tank means that you don't have any active protection system. You have fucking A3 APS, okay, which is technically better than the M1A2 and all the way up to the SEP V2. But you are giving up all of your basically really good Tusk's armor and your APS for a fucking jammer for damn near fucking 300 points. I wouldn't bring this thing. Yes, its penetrator is very good. It is, in fact, very good. Is it worth it being that price when you can technically just pay a little bit more and get a fucking M1A2 SEP V2? Probably not. I wouldn't get them, but that's up to you. The jammer prevents you, technically it's like 20% of the chance the missile can miss this tank. I wouldn't go for it. Now, technically your easiest and cheapest tank option should probably be the M1HC that you can get. It has a baseline armor package, and then it has a fucking jammer, but it's even cheaper, and its APSF only goes through 900 millimeters at best, compared to an A3, which can go to 1,000. Cheapest M1 Abrams, they have their purpose of being very cheap and getting you fire support. However, for fucking 10 more points, you can, in fact, get an M1A2 with 200 more optic range, okay? Probably should get this if you're going to go for it, right? for cheap tank with no armor. Your quote-unquote cheapest option that's realistically available to you should probably be the M1A2 SEP, because it has a better penetrator that can go up to 950 kinetic. And you can technically upgrade it to a Tusk armor system, but again, Tusks are not very good because if you're playing tanks properly, you will not get hit in the side. Now, the M1A2 SEP V2 can get a trophy system, which is very useful for defending against kinetic rounds and heat and missiles, and you can get 4 uses of it for 70 more points. Now, it does cost a lot of fucking dough, okay? 325 points is not cheap, let's just say that. But you do get a better kinetic penetrator to actually go through the front. Now, your best tank you can get is the M2A2 SEP V3 trophy, okay, with an A4 projectile. Now, means you can go through 1050 kinetic, which I believe, I don't even know if that can actually go through a fucking Russian T-14. Let us check together. Can this actually penetrate a fucking T-14 from the front? Yes, it can. And the reason you actually give a shit about the kinetic penetrator here on the trophy for the A3 or SEP version is because this has fall off. So technically its maximum effective at very close range is 1050, which means that the further distance you are, the lower this value is going to go. So having the value higher means that you can penetrate the T-14 Armada from a further range, okay? Now, the main difference between the V3 and the V2, besides that, is that the optics are better on the V3 because they have the new and improved crows. If you see this crows, which a lot of you service members have, this is the first version that was mainly used in Iraq and I believe Afghanistan, which means it was basically the reason they got rid of this one was because it was too tall. Some tankers like it, some don't because of how tall it is with the optic system. They went to a lower profile one, which puts the main optics package on the side of the gun, meaning that it is lowers the overall profile of the tank. The fucking Abrams is already pretty big, so depending on which value you want to be able to see over stuff, or you would rather have it on the side, depends which system you'd like more. But they went with this one for the new upgraded thermal package, which means that its optics are better. You can, in fact, up-armor the shit out of this tank, but just know it'll cost 390 points for an extra Browning and a fuck ton of side armor for 30 more points. At that point, it is kind of worth it. Just remember that your HP also goes up with some of the armor configurations will increase your health points. So it's not a bad trade. Which means that technically if you get hit with a APSFD risk round and it goes through, let's just say you get hit with a heat round, and somehow it goes through on this trophy system. You can take, at this current configuration, 2 hits. If you go up 1, it can take only 2 hits before it dies, 9 plus 9 is 18. If you get this one, you can take 2 hits and survive at 1 HP. That is the main difference between whether you want to take the Tusk or not, is for the extra health. Yes, you can also defeat heat projectiles coming in from your sides. If you get hit in the side of this fucking thing, you deserve to fucking die. So, that's up to you there, alright? That should be the tank tab done. Next are your support vehicles. I'm gonna go through all of these, because of course I am. LAVAD. Now, you have a choice here for your very close range, destroying helicopters and planes. You can take this. This is what I do. You can take the PAVAS if you want for the ability to also shoot down ballistic missiles, which it does have the actual ability to do, unlike the AV, but it doesn't have stingers. And it's radar, which means you'll probably fucking forget it's on and it will get sniped by something that has radar targeting, which are a lot of shit. You can also take the linebacker. It has different variants, so you can technically take the SHORAD, which is about the same price as the fucking AD, have better armor, and get the SHORAD, which means you get a Hellfire missile that can shoot 6 of these at helicopters, and you get a fucking 30mm gun that can shoot, again, ballistic missiles as well as helicopters. Now, technically, this GAU can actually shoot at airplanes, and the Stinger can shoot at airplanes. Both the Hellfire and the 30mm cannot. That means you choose what you want here. You want a better helicopter killer? It's probably the Shorad. If you want a better overall fucking thing that can shoot down more shit, it's probably, again, the Shorad. If you want stuff that can hit helicopters and planes very effectively, you're going to take the LAV. That's your short range package. The PAVAS you can fucking take if you want something cheap that can shoot down ballistic missiles. Just as long as you remember to turn the fucking radar off on it, alright? If, again, the Shorad is the same problem. If you go up into any upgrade to the Shorad, you're having a radar system on this vehicle, which means it can be killed by fucking any unit that is using harms. So basically anything that can seek radiation, which is what radar is going to be emitting here. You also get a fucking smoke grenade launcher, unlike the LAV, which you can get on the A2. Alright? Those are your short-range air defense systems. Your quote-unquote long-range air defense system, besides being fucking airplanes, because again, this is the United States, not known for its anti-air work, because we have the United States Air Force and the United States Navy and the United States Marine Corps with all of their fucking planes, which means you probably don't need very good long range. However, we get the Patriot. It's not terrible. It can shoot ballistic missiles and it can shoot airplanes. What armor configuration you fucking put this thing in, honestly, honest to God, if this thing gets spotted, a B kit is not going to fucking save its life. Your mileage may vary. A self-defense weapon on this thing is basically fucking worthless, because if this thing is actually being shot at by something like infantry, it's probably going to die. The only real difference here is if you want to take 2 or 4 missiles. You take 4 missiles, your packs go up by 60 points. You take 2 missiles, they don't, and you can technically spread them out more. But just know that you have to fucking reload this thing a lot, which means they have to have supply depots near them. My friend has played with the idea of 2. He's also played with the idea of 4. He kind of likes the 4 more. Your mileage may vary. You can take what you want there. Before we get on to the fucking supply vehicles, let us talk about the different artillery systems that we have. If you want to bring mortars, you have the choice of the LAV or the fucking Bradley without a turret mortar system. You can take mostly guided on this system, but you are paying for the ability to have mostly guided round and mostly smoke and mostly HE. You get 45 120s versus 66 81mm. The most important stat you need to worry about here is the fact that you only have 1800 meter range versus 2000. That's honestly not a lot. The reason I bring this up is because this is why I run fucking Paladins. The 3,800 meter effective range, this, in my opinion, these are not like Warno. These are not like any fucking war game you've seen where you can park artillery at the very end of the fucking map and shoot. No. These things gotta be fucking real close to the front line. These artillery guns have to be real close to the front line for them to even be able to fucking shoot. So if you bring a mortar and you want a mortar, actually putting a self-defense gun of some kind, and maybe up-armoring it, it's not a terrible idea because it's going to be so close to the front line that it will probably be getting shot at. The Paladins can at least stay a little bit further from the line to not be getting shot at. So, if you want more range, you're going to go for the heavy artillery variants over the mortars. But that's up to personal preference. If you want real long-range shit, you're going to take the HIMARS or the MLRS. The HIMARS has the ability to fire a prism, which is a laser-designated fucking fuck you button. The ATACMS, which is a cluster top attack munition, which is a big fuck you button to literally everything. And it also has the ability to have cluster and high explosive. You can take them in whatever configuration you want. Just know that this ATACMS, it does a lot of fucking damage. It does 15 damage, but it is 1 missile, and it can be shot down. The Prism is the same thing. It is 1 missile, and it can be shot down. However, if it fucking lands, it will kill whatever the fuck it lands near. Your MLRS has the ability to fire ATACMS as well. Only 2 of them, so technically more, but it's at fucking 300 points. Or you could technically fire cluster or high explosive warheads. Personally, I run the ATACMS on the HIMARS. Technically, that's what the fucking vehicle's called, I believe. Yes. Or you could run the cluster. I have run the cluster MLRS. It just depends on what you want there. Just know that the cluster is also technically fucking incendiary, because of course it is. Now, we have covered all of that shit. Let us talk about the resupply vehicles. You have 3. You can have the Lav, which has 25,000 points of cargo limit that it can take, and it is airdroppable. So technically, this means that you can throw one of these at the back of the plane. I don't know if you can throw this out of the back of a plane and have this have the supply. You can have supplies on airplanes and throw them out of the back of the vehicle, but I don't know about LAVs, all right? But it is a very small fucking cargo thing. The next real one you're probably either going to realize to get, because, again, having over 5,000 fucking supply is very useful a lot of the time, is the M54-8A3, which means, yes, this vehicle was in fact built in 1954. I run the LVSR because 15,000 points of supply is very good. I don't run anything else because if this thing gets seen, it's going to fucking die anyway. There can be a point to be argued here that you may want to run a smaller vehicle to ferry supplies. What I will say is this. There have been times where I have had to fucking consistently run supplies back and forth as the Russians because I didn't have a big vehicle like this LVSR. This LVSR can go pick up its own supplies at 15,000, drive it forward, drop that fucking thing in one run, versus having to get fucking, what is this, 3 of these to do, 1 of these to do 3 runs. I choose the heavier supply for 10 more points. Your mileage may vary there, okay? I don't even know what fucking configuration I had this shit in. I think I had this in cluster. Alright. Helicopters. Okay. The big debate is whether or not, because this is an Armored and Marine Corps deck, you don't get access to a lot of helicopters. Because you do not. You have the ability to either get basically attack helicopters, or you can bring transports. I bring transports, but your mileage may vary. Now, if you are going to get the attack helicopters, in my opinion, get the Super Cobra with fucking Hellfires if you really want it. You can bring these fucking things in about any configuration that you want. I will just say that if you want 2 of these, you're going to need to bring 2 of these cards with just 1 pair of Hellfires and some fucking rockets. Yes, the helicopter overall is worse than the Viper, but you have the ability to fucking bring 2 of them. If you try this same tactic with a Viper, you are paying $260. You can technically get it down to $230. I guess if you wanted to drop the guided rockets for input like fucking this, you could get it down to 230 configuration. But in all honesty, in my opinion, I would probably even drop down to 195 on these just for the fucking Hellfires. If you really, really, really wanted a tank killer versus what this thing has, which technically the cheapest value you could get on this thing is 200. Going over this, I don't know anymore. Because, yes, the Viper is better. Fuck it, we'll just say you should take the Viper if you wanted to do it in that in this very specific configuration with 8 Hellfires and the shit Hydras. Take it in that configuration versus the W1. But in all honesty, what you're probably going to, what I see a lot of people doing is like going guided rockets, and then they're like, oh yeah, let me add some fucking sidewinders on there, and then this point value jumps up significantly. Those are up to you. Those are your 2 attack helicopters. The cheaper variant has its benefits. That's what I'll say there. Now, the transport helicopters. You have 2 variants, the E and the K variant of the King Stallion, and yes, they do actually look different. The main thing you need to pay attention to is, well, this fucking thing can lift 16,000 pounds of shit, and this thing can lift 1,450 pounds of shit. If you are going to be running transports like I am, I'm just like, fuck it, I'll pay the extra price to have the ability to bring a fuck ton more heavy lift shit in, which means you can bring in vehicles that are on heavy lift. So technically, you can bring in a HIMARS, you can bring in an LSRV, you can bring in one of these fucking Lavs, and then you can bring in infantry if you take the King Stallion. And then you can also throw supplies in there if you really wanted. If you want to bring a fucking vehicle and supplies, you can do both on this fucking thing. That's why I take it. You can upgrade its fucking self-defense gun if you really want to. Personally, I wouldn't, because if this fucking thing is getting shot at, well, it's probably going down. Just know that if you do upgrade the self-defense gun on the Super Stallion, the E variant, you are upgrading this little fucking shit gun on the side. So it can only shoot in one direction versus the King Stallion's two. So you're really just paying for the cargo capacity at this point. And I didn't have any fucking points left over, so I was like, fuck it, I'll just pay for the King Stallion. You also have the ability to take an Osprey. Now, my friend has had a lot of success with these. Just remember that they do not have a lot of cargo capacity, nor do they have the seat capacity of the other two. However, they can get to the target very quickly, but they do take forever to fucking unload troops. That's what I will say there. If you want to upgrade its package, it gets the minigun on the bottom, so it can technically shoot 360 degrees. It's not a bad upgrade on that, honestly. The last thing you can technically get here are the UH-1 Venoms. These have the ability to basically have door guns of the M240 or the miniguns. I take the miniguns because, you know, I like the aesthetic and, you know, fuck it, I'll be able to shoot something. You can also take them with different amounts of rockets, with either the APKWS guided rockets or just HIMARS. They're not bad little support helicopters if you are going to use them for rockets and then bring in resupply. Now just remember that the King Stallion can fit Marine squads, I believe 2 of them, and also Marine Raiders, I believe also 2 of them if they're running 14-man squads, which, yes, they are. The Osprey can't. 14, 28. Yeah, they cannot run Marine Raiders, but they can run 2 Marine squads. So you can only have 1 Marine Raider or 2 Marine squads in the Osprey. In the King Stallion and the Super Stallion, you can run 2 Marine squads or 2 Raider squads when you want to bring them in. And they fuck ton of support personnel. The Venoms can only have 8 people, which basically limits them to bringing in small, mechanized guys, and anyone that's under the squad size of 8, which is a lot of your support personnel. Okay? So that's helicopters done. And the last thing we're going to talk about is air. Now, talking about this fucking Harvest Hawk, because it's basically a C-130. How this works in the game is that you can basically call this fucking thing in whenever the fuck you want. For 200 points, if it makes it back to base, you will get the 200 point value back. But it will take time to, quote-unquote, come back to your deck. So basically it being, like, rearmed and resupplied. If it makes it back, it does take time, but it's like only like 20, 30 seconds. If it does not make it back, well, you lose a 200-point aircraft, and it takes forever to come back. So preferably you don't want to fucking lose this thing. So my advice is, if once you have dropped your package, manually tell this thing to turn to go back towards your objective. After a few seconds, press the B button to tell it to return to base. That is the most success I have seen in actually making these things survive. If you just tell them to return to base, they'll continue to fly fucking straight and then do like a massive loop around and get shot down. Instead, if you tell them to turn manually by clicking on the map, they'll fucking do a hard over and they'll get the fuck out of there, usually. Now, they may not survive, but that's a different matter. You can throw 2,000 points of supplies out of this. You can throw 64 people and a couple thousand points of supply out of this fucking thing. Means you can technically airdrop a goddamn vehicle and a fuck ton of Marine Raiders. In the beginning stages of the match, that is what I do. I bring Marine Raiders, I bring a lot of Recon guys, I bring a fucking AA vehicle. My friend brings in the heavy support shit. Our tanks, fucking artillery, other Marines that can get to my position, and means I will hold an objective while he gets there, and all I have to do is hold. Now, these aircraft are very good for that. After the initial point in the game, these start to die off a little bit, but they're not useless. If you have a back line that you have like a landing zone, basically, you can get this thing to drop more Marine Raiders there, and whatever the fuck else you need, more vehicles, more fucking supplies, whatever you need very fast, and it can get the fuck out of there. If you're on a big map. If you're on a very little map, these kind of fucking diminish in value after you call them in once. If you're on a big map, they have more utility to bring in massive amounts of supplies that can be dropped behind your lines so that you can have your supply vehicles go get it and fucking drive it to your guys, or you could do transports, or you could do whatever the fuck you wanted there. They have uses, is what I will say. Do they have uses in carrying Griffin missiles and fucking Hellfire and Stormbreakers? No. No, they don't. Because they're so fucking big that if they get seen and you're trying to use them as a AC-130, they're not going to work because everyone's going to, and their mother's going to fucking try to shoot this goddamn thing down. So that's what I would use them for. The initial first push and also for resupplies if further into the game on big maps. Your first quote-unquote real Harrier that you can get is this Marine Corps variant. Now, it has a whole bunch of bullshit on it, but you can make it be whatever the fuck you want it to be. What I will say is this. If you're trying to get... If you're trying to get, like, a close support aircraft, you should probably be taking this fucking ECM pod. Because it's only 5%. Oh, fuck. It's only 5%, and you get a GAU out of it. A GAU 12 pod. What the fuck does that even do? Oh, gives you a 25mm gun. Oh, that's what it does. Okay. 5% ECM is not very good. That's what I will say. If you ever get a laser destination pod, this technically means the aircraft can laser designate for itself. However, I would not use it like that because I have seen plenty of fucking times aircraft have tried to laser designate something. They will laser designate it. They will not drop their bombs on the target. They will fly the fuck over it, come back around the long way, and then try to drop it on something they've laser designated. Basically means, in my opinion, at least in the open beta, the fucking laser designated pod on your aircraft is not worth it. On infantry that can laser designate something, and then this can drop laser guided bombs on the fucking thing, yes, those are very much worth it. The having the ability for the aircraft to laser designate its own targets, not so much. So you can take one of these. They're not very good, but they do the fucking job of close air support if you really, really wanted to. But yeah. Next, you have your AV-8 Night Attack variant, which basically means your fucking bomber. This thing has one mission. It is to die, but get the ordnance on the target. It can do that very well. You can bring it in a whole bunch of fucking variants. You can bring it in Snake Eye variant, Thousand Palm variant, Firebomb variant, Rock Eye variant, blah, 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 blah. In reality, it doesn't fucking matter, because this thing will get the shit shocked out of it if it even makes it to the target, because it has no ECM and only 20 electronic countermeasures. So, just know, if you call this thing in, it's a one-way fucking trip. The next thing, if you want to hunt enemy AA, so Russian or American, you're gonna need to fucking bring the Prowler. If you're gonna bring the Prowler, in my opinion, the ECM pod for 15% is not a bad idea if you want to run 2 harms. The fuel tanks mean that you can stay in the mission area longer, but in all honesty, that really doesn't fucking matter. It can matter if you're running like Afterburn like all the fucking time, but besides that, no. The 15% will save your ass some of the time from immediately dying from counter AA fire, which you will be receiving in fucking something like this. You can also go the fucking madman route of equipping 4 of these fucking harms and just firing at something that you already know is there. And this can be useful if you have a scout sniper team in the back that is fucking sees the enemy Patriot system or equivalent, call this thing in with its 8 missiles, it will go fucking destroy that motherfucker. Or you can make it more survivable. That's up to you there. Now, there are 2 variants of the Hornet. If you are a military geek, you will understand that the C Hornet is the fighter and the D Hornet is the ground attack variant. Kind of. 2-seater. So you, again, depending on what the fuck you want to run here, if you want fighter superiority, get a fuck ton of AMRAMs on the C variant for 305 points. Its main job, kill enemy fighters. If you want to do ground attack with a Hornet, you get the D variant. You can bring it in whatever the fuck you want. Now, my aircraft that I like a lot is the Lightning. There are various reasons. Its stealth is a bit higher, means it will not be seen as much until it gets closer to the target, which means that there is less time for them to fire at the aircraft, which means there's less time for them to react, which means that it may escape. I bring it with the JDAMs, or LJDAMs with laser detonators. You can bring the AGMs that have the ability to top attack, laser detonate, napalm, and cluster, or you can bring the Stormbreakers. What I have found in my own testing for aircraft is if you laser designate a Stormbreaker, what will happen is that, yes, this aircraft can technically carry 6 Stormbreakers. If you laser designate a target, I have seen them only drop 1 of these Stormbreakers. In my own testing, I have also seen that them drop between 1 to 2 LJDAMs whenever the fuck they want to on a laser designated target. Most of the time it's 2. Some of the times it's 1. The Stormbreakers are almost always 1. Now, if you do a bombing run with the Stormbreakers, they will in fact drop all 6, but they will not be laser guided to the target. Again, that's your choice there. If you want to bring one of these fucking JDAMs, they will more than likely go hit the target with laser. If you bring the Stormbreakers, only one of them is going to go in there, and these actually don't do that much damage. They only do 18 damage compared to a 7 damage fucking sound. 36 damage LJDAM. So, again, it is what you prefer. These are technically just bombs. So if you want to do a bombing run on a target with 6 of these, yes, be very effective. They just won't laser very well. If you want to hit something with a laser designator, you bring the other variants. You also have the ability to have 10% ECM and 20 flares. Again, with a higher stealth rating means that you have a higher chance of coming back from whatever mission you're going on, which is why I choose the F-35 Lightning. And for the fucking shits and giggles, I bring this bomber to bomb something if I ever actually get the fucking points to do it. Okay, that should wrap up the fucking Arsenal deck guide, whatever, majigger. Hope you guys found it interesting, and you could click up there. There should be a link to the Russian guide out the next day. Okay? I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.